Well, welcome to Backstage with Geoffrey Morrissey. I'm your host, Geoffrey Morrissey. My guest today has traded in his suspenders for an I Love Beto t-shirt. It's none other than Alejandro from Shakey. How are you today?
I'm great, how are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. Thank you so much for taking the time. You put on an amazing set today. I know that you have some after parties to run to, but who have you been enjoying getting to see? Who are you looking forward to see?
This has been I guess this is my fourth time here, third time playing. And this lineup this year has been pretty far up my alley.
Yeah.
A personal favorite of mine, I kind of have a horse in the race too, but a bunch of my friends and also just a band family and acquaintances all created kind of they loathe to call it a super group, but it basically is. It's called Glorietta. And it's Matt Vasquez and David Ramirez and Kelsey from Wild Child and Jason Bloom and Adrian Casada. And anyway, point is, it's a massive, like 4 guitars on stage at once, and should be a total mess, but it's this beautiful song sharing thing where they all went out to a farm and traded music, and they all showed up with a couple songs and recorded on each other's stuff. And it sounds like it could have gone anyway, but this was their first show yesterday, and it was beautiful. It was so fun to watch, and it was like the exact right environment and captivating. And anyway, I was blown away. Sturgill also shredded my mind yesterday.
There we go.
Because I haven't seen him play electric guitar like that, and I didn't know that he did that, and it freaked me out. And I was like, that was like one of the most American feeling things I've seen in a long time. I was like, yeah,
there we go.
Rock music, yeah, fuck yeah, it was great.
See, and a nice part of the Glorietta thing too, I didn't realize that they were releasing an album and that they were going to have merch here as well.
Oh, yeah.
That was a welcome surprise.
Yeah, it's just started. It's like. And again, I've known about this for a while because I have friends in the band, and they, I've gotten to hear some of the early recordings and stuff, and was like, oh, this is wonderful. But watching it really, watching it at the show, at the big show, this is the game.
Yeah.
And it was amazing.
Of course. So the other thing is, in about 25 minutes, there's going to be an unannounced band, Unannounced and Sons, playing at the fourth stage. So if you could pick anyone to sort of fill that spot, if you could fly anyone in, they're headlining Newport Folk. Who are you setting up for the unannounced spot?
At this point, I would say Neil would be great. Neil Young would be a good one. Mm-hmm. David Byrne would be great. Bruce Springsteen would be really helpful. That'd be great. That'd be a great one. And maybe Cher.
Maybe Cher. Okay.
No, if only Bruce was. Yeah, I mean he would. You got to trick Bruce into because he's a big softie. He would totally do it.
Yeah, he's great. He's one of those people I have the 6 degrees of separation with, and I'm just hoping that one day the paths cross.
Ooh, man, yeah. Just hang out with him for a little while. I would freak out a little bit, I think.
Same. We'll hopefully get the chance to do it together at some point. Your amazing new album, Can't Wake Up, sort of focuses a little bit on Wizard of Oz type themes.
Sure.
And so, of course, Tin Man is the closer, but if you could pick a character from the Wizard of Oz, which Wizard of Oz character are you?
Probably Toto.
Toto, okay. Yeah. That's a good one. Lovable.
Yeah,
sure.
and kind of doesn't seem too fazed by anything, It's just along for the ride. Goes through the whole experience, makes it out. Kind of the unsung hero of Wizard of Oz,
Yeah.
Because, Toto, little black dog.
That's a good one for me. Another track, Dining Alone, it reminded me of almost like a modern version of the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock, like Do I Dare, and
right.
Sort of that fear holding someone back. Was that a theme that you were sort of tied to, what holds us back and what we're afraid of? How did that sort of seep onto the record?
Yeah, I mean, to a certain degree, that is kind of the whole record. That's what Can't Wake Up means to me. Is that sometimes it just feels like there's something you can't snap out of,
Mm-hmm.
And it's that very thing. It's like sometimes it's just sadness or being way too hard on yourself when in actuality things aren't that bad, Mm-hmm. And I think that's something that everybody goes through, even if it's just like 2 minutes of your day, or whether it's 2 years of your life, or whether it's your whole life. I mean, it happens to everybody at least once.
Oh, yeah.
So I kind of love working in universals, or in the things we all share is kind of what I like to talk about.
I like it a lot. I was reading that you had a thesis statement going into this project, that you were working with this, a thesis. What was that thesis statement for you?
Well, the thesis statement was that I wanted this record to seem like, because coincidentally I look back and all of my record covers, even the actual covers have always been black and white. And it wasn't an intentional thing, it was just how it turned out. And so what I wanted this record to sound like was like going from black and white into color, which is kind of why the Wizard of Oz thing came from out of that, because that's a perfect example of black and white to color and what that means in sort of a psychedelic or dreamy way, and that's initially I wanted the record to really sound differently and then bloom into something, but instead it kind of goes in a more of a waveform way, up and down.
Another thing that I was thinking about with this, the phrase intentional work on an album.
Yeah.
And, that is something with art, there is a lot of unintentional work, obviously, but what did the intentional work on this look like for you?
Well, I mean, I think that there's a lot of really good art or music or whatever to be captured out of just spontaneity, or, putting something together that maybe doesn't even make coherent sense, but you get more of a mood from it, and then kind of just piecing together whatever you have and being like, this is the record, these are the 9 or 10 or 15 just things that sound the best.
Yeah.
And instead of that, I wanted it to be a cohesive piece, to be looked at and viewed more like a movie than a series of short films. It's like one piece of work. So it took more thought and intentional planning to like figure out what goes before what and how to massage things in and out.
That's interesting that you sort of bring it up being like a movie. If you could do the soundtrack for one movie, which one would you want to take a crack at?
Already made. Or if
you want to create a concept for a future one too, I'd be happy to hear that as well.
Yeah, if I could do, maybe like a Dead Man, but that I say that just because Neil Young, going back to Neil, murdered that soundtrack. But it's just him and it's just electric guitar music the whole time. I've wanted to score something for a while. I also just watched Under the Skin, the Scarlett Johansson movie that came out in 2014 about her being a weird space alien. That you should check it out. It's pretty wild. But the soundtrack in that was great. I love sci-fi, so maybe a sci-fi movie. Maybe Fifth Element. We'll say that.
Fifth Element?
Do the soundtrack to the Fifth Element.
I want to hear it. That sounds great.
Okay, great.
I'm going through my notes here. I just sort of have all these different songs written down. Tin Man Kids These Days, I could go on and sort of talk on about them. What is the thing on this album that when you either do these interviews or people come up to you that you wish people notice more often, or you got the chance to talk about more often, something that maybe people aren't picking up on with this record?
I don't know. I've sort of felt like, based on, again, being a little more intentional with it, I kind of put it out there with a good explanation to go alongside with it. So I feel like it's been talked about well, or I've had the right conversations with everybody, as opposed to it being like, why would you do this? I guess the one thing that I think is kind of a silly question is like, why would it be different?
Yeah.
And to me, the answer is just that things change in time. And I wasn't trying to make something different for the sake of making it different, but I am different than the last time I made something. So I would hope that in anything that anybody does, that they would do what makes them happy and be as true to whatever their vision is. And to me, it just happened to sound different than what I guess I've done in the past.
Yeah, well, exactly. As much as I love Dearly Departed, I don't want to hear 13 versions of it every 2 years either. So
I saved you a little bit from that.
There we go. Well, thank you for that. And you mentioned this is your 4th time at Newport. Do you have a favorite Newport memory or?
Yeah. Oh man, there's a lot. The first year I was here, I got to do an after party at the Pickens Theater, and it was me and Valerie June and Lucius and Shovels and Rope, and it was just a wonderful experience. It was like my first year here, my eyes were just giant, and it was a truly magical night. And the rehearsal felt so, we like practiced in the bowels of this theater, and we all sang a couple songs together, and I did an Elvis song with the Lucius Girls, and it just like, and I took photos the whole time. It just, the whole thing is like, it's a big, sweet photograph in my memory.
That's what we like to hear. Now, I don't want to keep you from getting to these after shows, so I'm going to end the interview now. Who are you listening to? Who's been spinning in your van?
Oh, who am I listening to? I've been listening to, was it King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard?
Okay, that's a good one.
And I wish I was here to see Khruangbin, because I've been listening to a lot of Khruangbin too. Been listening to a lot of Elliott Smith again, like always. Also listening to a lot of the stuff that the Numero Group puts out. Numero Group, I don't know how to pronounce it. It's basically this series of records, or a record company that does these crazy compilations where they buy sort of defunct other record, like they buy whole scenes of like Detroit record labels that went flat, and then they make a collection, and they're like, oh, songs you've never heard. So it's just a bunch of bands. It's hard to describe.
Yeah.
But basically, like, I just got one that's called Technicolor Paradise. That's all this like Martin Denny 1960s trippy cocktail beach music.
Oh, wow.
And it's just like 40 songs that you never heard of any of the artists, and you put it on, it's like the greatest soundtrack.
Well, there we go. If you're not listening to Can't Wake Up by Shakey Graves, damn it, you should be. If you can, get down to the House of Blues on September 19th. Catch Shakey and the Wild Reeds playing there. I'll be there. You should be too. Thank you so much, Alejandro.
Hey, thank you.